Hey there, everybody. It's your buddy Choppadong, and we're back with Week 2 NFL box checkers. Essentially, we're transferring everything we've done from MLB over into NFL and calling it NFL Made Easy. And the reason why is we're going to hyper simplify systems. We're going to make it easier for you not to spend hours and hours and hours doing research every single day. We're going to show you proven methodology that cuts the player pool down to just a few choices at each position and gives you the best of the best. The guys historically hitting inflection points to make value. That type of situation is going to set you up for cash games and tournaments and give you some key pivots when they're a little bit lower owned. That's an easy way for you to not have to spend hours and hours and hours out of your busy schedule trying to dig deep into statistics. If you have the time, do it. If you have the desire, do it. But if you don't have the time, this is an easy way to get you into the competitive field quickly, give you ideas of what to do early in the week so that as numbers and everything come out later in the week, more content comes out, you can continue to finalize your player pool, maybe add a couple of players, maybe subtract a couple of players, but you're generally already centered on the best plays of the week. So let's jump in. Let's go. I represent DFSArmy.com. I'm a coach and contributor, senior coach and contributor, and notorious smallaballa over here at DFSArmy.com. You might even call me the coach's coach. However, my focus is always on simplifying things. So if you want to become a VIP and simplify your own process, I recommend you come in, take a look, use coupon code KICKOFF. One more week, 20% off discount each and every month. And while you're down there, like and subscribe to the video, smash that notification bell, and even comment, because I just might comment back. Let's dive into the NFL research station at DFSArmy.com because that's where we always start. And I have had struggles this week. I have done the same thing over and over and over for 3 or 4 years, but I'm starting to realize the game evolves. And as the game evolves, we need to evolve with it. One key area for VIPs in DFS Army that you absolutely have to read each and every week is Burns's Millie Maker Shark Chronicles. That article, I'm telling you, you want to watch all the videos, you want to watch all the podcasts, you want to look at the tools and whatnot, but read that article. It is laying out, he is a mathematician and probably a Mensa Society member and a more or less mathematical savant. He dives into what wins the Millie Maker contests and breaks it down into criteria. What game totals are we looking for? What spreads are we looking for? What typically leads to players that hit the Millie Maker winning lineup 60, 70% of the time and beyond? Those criteria I have infused into box checkers this week, which is why box checkers is coming out a little bit late this week. And we're going to try and get through the research station showing you where I'm looking for these players and how. I'm not filtering off as much anymore because it leaves out players last week like Alvin Kamara, and we all know Alvin Kamara is obviously a week-to-week play. So we don't want to cut him off that list. We want to maybe look up and down the list and keep the names on it and then write down on a separate piece of paper which players we might be choosing. So the trick to that is filtering or sorting this domination station in a slightly different way. The first thing that I have done is I've cut off the games that are not on the main slate by holding the control button down and clicking those buttons. I start on the quarterback tab like everybody else, and what I'm looking for is a few key criteria. I look highly into the Vegas situations. I don't look a lot at the QB stats, air yards, who throws, how many times. Volume is not as predictive of a great quarterback. I mean, yes, it helps if he throws 50 times as opposed to 30 times, but efficiency matters more. So I infuse a graphic like total QBR over ESPN.com, and I know which quarterbacks are generally in the top of that range. Believe it or not, Ryan Tannehill, Baker Mayfield, these guys are efficient quarterbacks. That means they tend to do more with what they get, okay? Now, maybe it works every week, maybe it doesn't work every week, but my point stands. Efficiency leads to making value and leads to sealing performances more often than volume does. It's more important than pure volume. Volume helps, but it's more important than pure volume. I'm looking at big totals. I'm not looking at heavy favorites. I'm looking somewhere between the 3 to 7.5 point range. And I'm targeting favorites, and I'm targeting home teams, just like you've seen in the old box checker criteria. Home, favorite, implied to score over 24 points as a team, and then efficient quarterbacks. But I'm adding in the spread here, trying to keep it between 3 and 7. Those quarterbacks typically hit the Millie Maker winning lineups more often, meaning they had smash games, and of course, higher total games, somewhere over 45 to 46 points. If I have a 3-point game and a 42-point total, I'm not as interested in that game, even if he's home and if he's favored, okay? If that makes sense. There's just not a lot of action going on in those games for us to target when there are other options on the slate that are better opportunities to score points. So, when I'm looking at these types of games, these quarterbacks are going to stand out. Doesn't mean that Brady and Mayfield are not there. Mayfield probably is going to lean on Chubb this week. That would be my guess. Brady doesn't have a running game. So Brady maybe is an exception to this rule where you would include him. If they're going to blow the doors out, they're not going to all of a sudden lean on the run too much. They're probably going to get there by using their pass catching weapons. So that's a great scenario still, even though it's a 12-point spread. But I would be keying on Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray again, maybe some Jimmy Garoppolo if we're not going to really get into the whole, rookie quarterback bouncing back and forth timeshare type deal with Trey Lance. Roethlisberger, maybe, if he's still got it, which I don't know that he does. Dak being an underdog and Dak being on the road actually hurts his chances in this game. Now, for tournaments, play him. He can go off just like anybody else. And he's going to probably be pretty chalky, 10% owned based on our early projections. But this is the type of situation where you might favor a Russell Wilson because he's at home, because he's favored, because he's typically going to score more points in this situation than Dak in terms of winning the game and whatnot. Now, in terms of fantasy scoring, yes, use them both. But if I'm wanting a safer play for a cash game or a smaller GPP type of scenario, I'm probably leaning more on Russell Wilson than I am on Dak, okay? Because again, efficiency and volume and all that good stuff come to play. When I scroll over a little bit more, look down here, there's a bunch of guys. But once you start getting down below this 22, 23 mark, we start running into underdogs. And we don't want a lot of those underdogs. Jalen Hurts, great with his legs. Probably not a safe play this week. Probably more of a risky play. Kirk Cousins, low ceiling typically, but he can go off on occasion. Joe Burrow was great last week. Derek Carr was great last week. They may not be great this week. Matt Ryan as well is one of those situations that you're going to want to monitor. So these guys are carrying more risk than usual. They're not implied to score as many points. They're underdogs, especially if they're on the road, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's why we want to stay up here to these guys up in here. And I would be keying on Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson types this week if it was me in a catch game type of scenario. Now, Russell Wilson at 8% owned, Justin Herbert 11%. Nobody's going to be too highly owned. That's the quarterback position by nature. It is what it is. Now, let's transfer this over into the running backs, and let's see how this goes. Because I'm not sorting by Vegas here. I'm sorting by volume. Because rushing attempts are king. Touching the ball is king at the running back position. This is where volume does matter. Targets per game help. So I can add these together. And if I get 23 points over the last year in one game or whatever, 23 touches per game out of Derrick Henry plus a couple of pass attempts, it's 25. If I get 22 out of Dalvin Cook plus 4, that's 26 touches per game these guys are getting. That's pretty damn crazy. That's very, very high volume work. Joe Mixon's up there all of a sudden. He's the only guy in town. They're throwing to him. They threw to him a bunch last week. It's 25 touches a week. There's another 26, 27 for McCaffrey. These guys are obviously your bell cows. They're obviously pretty script independent, and they're going to be there no matter how the game turns out. They're going to get, now, are they going to have ceiling games for tournaments? That's what we need to determine. We need to combine that with a couple of other factors. But once we've got all these guys that are sitting here up and over about 16, 17 touches per week, somewhere all the way down to even a Kamara who's at 13 touches per week but 7 targets, there's still 19 targets, 20 targets, or 20 touches per week. You're still there. These guys are all kind of in play. And we need to go through here and we need to check off who's at home. So all these guys on the top are on the road. That means that it's a slight decrease. But you've got your Christian McCaffreys at home. Montgomery, Robinson, Najee Harris. Is it a bounce back week for Robinson? I don't know. Nick Chubb, yes. Jonathan Taylor, yes. Miles Sanders and Gaskin factor more into the passing game. Ronald Jones, if you trust him. But these are all guys. You can vary the degree of safety that you feel with these players, of course. You can use ownership reports as your guide. Looks like everyone's on Najee Harris this week. Do you trust him? I don't know. He's still a rookie, and he was on the field for 100% of the snaps last week. Yeehaw. We all know that. Touched the ball what? 16 times, 3 targets, 19 times. It's pretty good, but if there's no production to it, if they don't get into the red zone, then he's not touching the ball in the red zone much. Okay? So that's some of the things that we need to watch as well, because again, 75% of running backs' points, fantasy points, are scored inside the 10. Inside the 10. So we need to look at those rushing attempts and see how often these guys are punching the ball in from there, because that's where their points are going to go. Everything else outside the 10 is just kind of garbage yardage. It's garbage points. It's a nice floor, but it's not going to get you the ceiling if his team can't get into the damn red zone to score some damn points. Okay? But this is how you might set this up, and then you're going to look up and down. And as I find better and better ways to set this up, filter this off, I'll share them with you. So this is going to be a little bit of a rough approach this week, obviously. But what you're looking for, again, Derrick Henry bounce back spot, Dalvin Cook. The only real chink in the armor is that they're on the road. Because even in Vegas, they're implied to score some points. I would rather than be favored, of course, come down to a David Montgomery maybe. That'd be interesting. And Trey Sermon, of course, we got the Elijah Mitchell situation going on there. You might lean on one or the other. I hate committees. Nick Chubb is going to be one of my favorites. If he's lower owned, 11%, 14%, whatever, that's crazy. 26% there, 26% on McCaffrey, that's fine. But I'm going to look more on a Chubb, or look more, towards even a Derrick Henry bounce back in some tournament scenarios. Dalvin Cook is pretty game script proof. These are guys that you generally are going to want. When you can catch them at a little bit lower ownership than usual, these are guys you're going to key on. Okay? Come down here to the wide receiver tab, same thing. Targets. Sort by targets. And you bring all your bigs to the top. Anyone over about 7 receptions per game on the average, I want to see these guys being used in the red zone, being used in the green zone, the inside the 10 stuff. These guys that get used down in here, see, like I'm not on Devontae Smith yet, but some people are. These guys are the guys that I'm keying on. And when I can, again, find them slipping at the ownership levels, a little bit like a Deontay Johnson, Allen Robinson. These types of guys are in pretty good tournament pivot spots. But your guys with your high floors, your Keenan Allens, your Stephon Diggs, your DeAndre Hopkins, these guys are in there every week. I'm looking for big totals over 27 points. So DeAndre Hopkins, Keenan Allen, these are guys for cash games. You might pivot off of Keenan Allen, use a Mike Williams in a tournament type of scenario. And he's cheaper and he's some salary relief, but Keenan Allen has the floor. Mike Williams may be proving to have a floor right now, but Keenan Allen has the floor. It's just a matter of whether or not he's got the upside. And being that they're also at home, they make great plays. And DeAndre Hopkins is at home, and Deontay Johnson is at home, and Allen Robinson's at home, and Chicago's favored this week. So these are good scenarios for these guys. Tight end. Once again, we sort off by targets. And what we're looking for is over 6 or 7. Now look at how this list really cuts down. You don't have a ton of guys on this list, but they're your standards. Darren Waller, Kyle Pitts, George Kittle, Noah Fant even, Goddard, right? These guys are in there. And Travis Kelce would be in here if he was on the main slate. So you come over here and you look inside these red zone, these 10s, these green zones, and look for guys that are also getting targeted. Would you believe that Kyle Pitts did not get targeted inside the red zone? That'll probably change. But for now, Darren Waller, Hunter Henry even. These are guys that go back to last year in some cases, and these are guys that are getting targeted inside the red zone, inside the green zone, where we want them. And defenses is simple. So, again, you're sticking here to the top of this list for your cash games. You can pivot off and stack with these guys down in here for your quarterbacks, all you want. But keep that to tournament plays. If you're building cash lineups, you want to stay up here with the steady eddies. Defense. I'm looking for closer spreads. I'm looking for stuff. This one I will sort off by game total. I'm wanting stuff in the 46 to 44 type range, and I want close spreads. So here, Chicago being favored, good defense for the week. New Orleans Saints, great defense for the week. Maybe some Patriots, good defense for the week. These are the types of games that I'm targeting. Buffalo Bills, LA Rams. These are the guys. I want the favored team. I want the closer spread, and I want the middling point total games, not the low, not the high, somewhere in there. These are the ones that are landing 68% of the time in the milli-making lineups. So, like I said, as we roll through the week, we will refine this process a little bit. But overall, for week 2, you've got a good starting point when you have access to our Research Station tool, found at dfsarmy.com. Use that coupon code KICKOFF, get that 20% off discount, and get in here and start building stronger lineups right now. Let's go, guys. We'll see you real soon.